One of the things that I've seen across all industries is the fact that we used to be in offices together, but when we were together in an office, you had some real community. You met with people, you looked in their eyes, you had side conversations, and if people brought their lunch, you ate lunch together. When we went remote, which we had to do, and now I think we're actually doing a really good job of it, you lose that. And people find community wherever they can. And so for a lot of our people and other people that I come across, they find online communities and they have communities that they develop elsewhere outside of work. And so there's less of a tight coupling to the job.
Hello, Steve.
Hello.
Man, excited. Another episode talking about leadership and people and all those wonderful things. Yeah. Let's jump back into it about the scary metrics that we're often just blind to in our business. I was reading some metrics and one of my coaches mentioned this to me, that over 51% of employees are looking for a new job. And then there's the other one, just attrition in the IT industry, like 22% of people leaving a company, 57% of people experiencing burnout in the last year, and very few people saying, I actually love it here and don't want to move, even if you offered me another 10, 20 grand. And that's pretty scary. It scares me as an owner, who's going to leave? Who's going to stay? Who's not really enjoying coming to work and getting results? Who's just checking boxes and clocking time? So I guess, what have you encountered in your conversations with businesses and managers, and how many of them are aware of that?
I think they're aware of it, Wim, but there's very few answers about what to do with, how to deal with that, because the stats are out there. I mean, anyone who follows LinkedIn or different blogs or podcasts, the stats are there. But what do you do with it? And I think one of the things that I've seen across all industries is the fact that we used to be in offices together. And I'm not arguing the merits of hybrid work and productivity of working remotely. That's not the point that I'm going to make. But when we were together in an office, you had some real community. You met with people, you looked in their eyes, you had side conversations, and if people brought their lunch, you ate lunch together. When we went remote, which we had to do, and now I think we're actually doing a really good job of it, you lose that. And people find community wherever they can. And so for a lot of our people and other people that I come across, they find online communities and they have communities that they develop elsewhere outside of work. And so there's less of a tight coupling to the job. And so the job is just another sub community that they have, but they're still looking for that. And so if they feel like they're not connected, they're going to try to find that anywhere they want or anywhere they can. And so that's part of what I'm seeing too, is just the idea of community. And funny, in the tech industry that, the word isn't really used that often, this idea of community. It's starting to be used because people see the importance of it. But this idea of forming communities of belonging is just starting to emerge as an important topic in tech anyway. So that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, community is a better word than family.
Yeah.
Because it's not family. You can say it's work family and stuff, but it's not really. Like, people leave and come and go, and people got to be phased out, all sorts of things. So that's not really a good word, but community is a good one.
Yeah. And I think another thing that I'm seeing is the 51% are looking for a new job. What I've noticed is it's not so much that they're actually looking and applying and, they're looking at all the ads and stuff. It's really, they're just looking for ways to feel more belonging. And so if they don't on one day, they don't sense it, they're going to try to find that anywhere that they can. They're going to look on these different community posts that they can be a part of, or say someone does headhunt them, and if they're feeling in a certain place where they're not getting that community or belonging that they're looking for on that given day, and they answer a survey question about, hey, are you looking for a new job? Well, yeah, I am. They might not be. What they're just looking for is community and a sense of belonging. And so I think the onus on us meaning like industry leaders, is to do what we can to not, I use the word accommodate, but I like to provide opportunities for people to connect in that way so that they feel that sense of belonging and community. I agree with you. The word family is not appropriate. It used to be, but I think people are starting to see that that's not really the case. And nor should we try to create that sense, because that's not what we're about. But I think people are aware of the stat. They don't know how to do it. They don't know how to reverse that, because we're more concerned about the other metrics that we as business people are more concerned with. Well, it's about growth, it's about it's about finance, it's about sales, marketing, and those types of things. Those are easier to see results in. And the idea of belonging and community and emotional intelligence and mental health, it's harder to see results, and it's harder to know how to pour into those metrics to get them to get on the upswing. So, yeah.
Think of a situation where a company, or it could be nonprofit or any sort of organization or team, let's say the culture is not completely toxic, but it's kind of bland and meh and not super high engagement. How long could it take to turn that around? It's kind of like, let's say, if you look at physical health, somebody's like not completely sick, but they know they haven't been as active as they should be. They got an extra few pounds. They know their habits are not that good. How long could it take to turn that around? And having a vibrant culture and a place where people want to work and they bring their buddies, like what's required and how long could it take to turn that around?
So I'm going to give the cop-out answer, Wim, and say it depends. And the reason why I say that and not give a more definitive answer is because it reminds me of this joke. How many psychologists does it take to change a light bulb? Well, it only takes one, but that light bulb really has to want to change, And so we might, as business leaders, as tech leaders, we might have all these great plans and templates for culture change and culture shift. But if the employees, if the teams aren't ready to embrace that, it's not going to catch on. And so I think the more important question is, how do we get the people that we have to see the value in a positive work culture? Otherwise, we're just slinging stuff at the wall and hoping it sticks, because you and I have talked about this before. We could deliver daily amazing programs on teamwork and trust and vulnerability and mental health and all those types of things that go, there's more. But all those things that go into a positive culture and work environment. But if nobody steps halfway and meets you there and wants to go, yeah, you know what? I need that. I want that and I need that. If they're not willing to do that, then it's going to be really hard to get any cultural traction that way. And so I think the better question is, how can you get your teams to buy into the fact that culture is really important? Because once you do that, then that can turn around quite quickly. Then it's not that long at all, because then everyone's on board. So I think that for people who are listening to this podcast, the key is in hiring people by that, identifying somehow in the interview process that they're fully on board and are ready to engage in that stuff. You bring them on, and then pretty soon that just starts to permeate your organization. But for someone who has been there for a longer time and doesn't necessarily see the value in it, it's going to be really hard to change their mind.
Yeah, but we've also heard enough of the stories and from our own experiences is that the new people coming in, they could have all the energy and be amazing. They could be coming from a great culture. They come in, they're going to come up or down to the average level of the organization.
Yeah.
Right? So if your leaders are not leading well, just managing, and they're not at that level 10, the new people will, within 3 months, will be running at that level 2. Yep. Training and whatever it might be, or not bringing up ideas, not being innovative. Yep. They'll come down to that level or leave. So I think it's all of that, like obviously hiring better and getting people up to speed on the culture right away. But it's through how we do our meetings. It's having the structure. Obviously, we love things like Traction, EOS, having those things in place. And through all of that, like just the way the work flows, like people not multitasking, do one thing at a time, able to take pride in your work, be satisfied with what you've done at the end of the day, looking forward to tomorrow, waking up in the morning, excited to go to work and rinse and repeat, not feeling disillusioned with what you actually got done because you had 5 things on your list and you did 15 other things instead and didn't do the 5. So it's all of that. Like, yeah, we could do the rah-rah sessions and the group hugs and therapy sessions and the mental health and the first aid and everything, but that will not make up for poor workflow, bad product, all those things. So it's hitting all those things. And if it's the organization has none of that in place, it's going to take longer. Mm-hmm. But if they've got, a lot of companies have bits and pieces of something. Maybe they got metrics. Maybe they've got core values to some level. So that's all going to help. In a year, 18 months, a lot can be accomplished.
No question. You and I have heard this before. The idea on the leadership team, but certainly across the entire organization, the idea of like calling out the values and actually like if your values are tightly tied to culture, which they should be, it's seeing someone behaving or acting or working out of alignment and then training people to call that out and to be able to like police themselves almost. And to be able to say, hey, that's not how we do this around here. This is how we behave around here. And that was not whatever, that was not respectful, or that wasn't, you're not fostering an environment of trust, like whatever language needs to be used, but getting people to hold each other accountable to the values so that it's not just kind of a top-down thing that gets very tiresome. But yeah, I think you're right. Like once there's buy-in and once there's commitment, especially from the leadership, 12 to 18 months, I think is a good target. Anything more ambitious, I think is hard. That's just what I've seen. It usually takes like a good year of just going through a full cycle to be able to turn some stuff around. And it's little things too. Like it's not a big splash and then all of a sudden you've changed your culture overnight. Like it's little things along the way. Interesting. I'm wondering, Wim, maybe comment on this because it was a little bit of a social experiment that I did with the team. But at the same time, it was genuine. So it wasn't like a disingenuous, hey, I want to test our culture. Like it was something that I really wanted to do. And I threw a question in Slack. It was during American Thanksgiving. And I just wanted to just say, hey, I know we're up in Canada, but, we can be thankful all the time. Everyone just throw a quick message in Slack and just say to everyone what you're thankful for, just to and I put 2 in there just to kind of grease the wheel. I was just always curious as to, who's going to kind of take the bait and really engage in that stuff. And so I didn't have any expectations other than just I was curious. So I think out of, what are we at, 38, 39 employees, or at least people who are in Slack on a regular basis, I think probably about maybe 5 or 6 people chimed in. I'm not worried about that because, people they're busy and they're not just going to drop what they're doing. And so I get it. I wasn't disappointed at all, but it was something that I just noticed. And so I wonder what you thought about that, just the lack of response. Again, we don't have to overanalyze it, but that was just something that stood out to me as kind of a cultural thing. Does that mean people aren't thankful? Probably not. But it was just kind of something that I noticed. I wonder what you thought about that.
Yeah, everyone's at a different spot in those things. So I've learned to not assume the worst with that just because only 5 responded, the other ones are not thankful. Mm-hmm. It came up in the radar like, oh, I'm in the middle of this, and then fell off their list. Yeah, so some of us practice those things more intentionally. So definitely, yeah, those people might have more leadership skills, be more engaged, but not necessarily. I don't want to assume that. No. So that requires some one-on-one. So not assuming the worst on that. So I don't think I responded either. It's just for that reason. It's just, I saw it. I definitely saw it. Yeah. And it was kind of neat. I'm like, oh, American thing.
I know.
Yeah, I'm grateful every day, right? For the air we breathe and the warm clothes and car and home and office and everything I have. Very grateful. Time and resources and talent and the team and everything, family.
So, Wim, going back to the original statement that you made about framing the discussion, like 51% of people are looking for jobs. And the question that you asked was, how do we get to where our people, like they love to work? Like, what are your thoughts on what that even means? Like, what does it mean to love it here at place of work? What are your thoughts on that?
I think like we talk about, like with traction, you have the get it, want it capacity to do it. And it's that want, is there fire in their belly? Are they enjoying coming to work to get results? And that's a product of obviously the environment, the team, their manager, the overall company, the mission, vision. Yeah, the work they're doing, are they set up to win on that? And they feel like they're winning? Is it clear? So it's a product of a whole bunch of things, but ultimately it results in retention, which is a whole topic nowadays in the job market, is retention and finding more talent, which is hard with unemployment being pretty low. It's changing a little bit the last month. There's more people coming into the market. That's good for employers, opportunity for employees to explore other places and other experience. But I think that's key, because if our people are loving it, that energy is going to carry forward into new team members coming on, to our clients. Like, these are our frontline people taking care of clients. Like, they've got to love what they're doing. That just brings so much energy and joy and satisfaction to what they're doing. Yeah. Just huge, lots of positive emotions there, being inspired and having fun.
I think a key for me, I 100% agree with everything you said. A key for me, so this isn't a but, this is an and, is people aren't going to love it all the time, because everyone gets tired and everyone gets weary. And, there are times when clients aren't happy, and that's hard, and things don't work like we thought they would, and that's hard. And so I think as leaders, the key for us to think about things that, how can we identify when people who normally do love it here, or they're A players or rock stars or even superstars, sometimes people get tired. And how do we do a better job of seeing when that happens, but then also creating a culture that invites people who are in those tired places or things aren't going well, where they feel empowered to say that to someone before someone in a leadership position goes, wow, you know what? I haven't seen you or heard from you for a long time. Is everything okay? Well, then they reveal what's been going on. But by then time, a lot of time it's too late. Right. Yeah. So I think that's a question for all of us to consider, for those that are listening to this podcast, is how can you identify the people that are your rock stars are going to struggle? They're going to get tired. They're going to get worn out. Do you know when that's happening? And if you don't, and it's still happening anyway, do they feel the freedom to come and tell you when it's happening? I think that's a sign of a really positive culture, because then if you can nip that in the bud early, then you might prevent a resignation or a burnout that results in time off and those types of things. So.
Yeah, that's a combination of things, is obviously having the regular one-on-one meetings, not waiting for an annual performance review. Like, that's the worst thing ever. Yep. So at least that doing the quarterly conversations. So that's been a success for us. So like regular meetings every week, every other week, depending on the role and such. Check in. Just getting good at reading eye contact, body language, expression. So getting on a video, and even if it's not video, if it's just verbal or phone call, you can still read a lot of the body language, emotion through the phone line. You're just getting good at, hey, I'm just feeling like you're distracted or that something's off. You're like, what's going on?
Yep.
And just getting comfortable with those, just bringing that up and having it early and often. I'm still practicing on that, but as I've improved, that's definitely improved things more. Yeah. Radical candor in a gentle, humble way, but just having those conversations early and picking up those warning signs. Like, hey, I noticed you said this in the meeting that seemed a bit off. Right? Like, what is that? I received it this way. Is that right? Is that what you intended? No. This is what's going on. Sorry. Like, so ironing out those things really early. Yeah. That's key. And not just treating people like a computer or a machine or a process or a cog in the wheel. Yeah. And these are not necessarily long conversations.
No.
Yeah, so that's the whole emotional intelligence side, the self-awareness. And that's the other stat is like 95% of people think they're self-aware. And they're not really. We aren't really. Nobody's that self-aware. So that's getting feedback and reflecting, and there's assessments, all sorts of things to help with that, right?
Well, and that you're right. And that's also where community comes in, is the idea of surrounding ourselves with people that know us, but they also, not only do they know us, but that there's trust enough that they're going to call out something difficult, and times in my life where I've been appreciative of someone that says, hey, you know what, I don't think you're doing what you should be doing. Like, not from a bad behavior standpoint, but if I've said yes to something, but I shouldn't have said yes. And then someone's come to me and said, hey, why'd you say yes to that? You're not really good at that. Like, what are you doing? Oh, yeah, well, it's my tendency just to say yes to whether it please people or to, just to prove to the world that I can do something, and what other like ridiculous reasons we have for saying yes to things that we shouldn't. But I think that's part of it too. It's so, knowing ourselves, but then surrounding ourselves with people who know us as well, who can keep us in check, I think is part of self-awareness too.
That's where I've appreciated having mentors and coaches and just strong leaders to have those good conversations.
Yep.
I think it's just around the importance of using coaches to help the level of an organization to culture. Because at a small business level, even like sub 100 people, it's to do it without any sort of external help. There's a wide variety of coaches and mentors, but to do it all on your own from reading the books, it's actually impossible because it's not intellectual work necessarily. It's more hard work, feelings, the soft side that moves the needle on it.
Yeah.
Like just some of the things we shared there with reading the body language and acting on it, is that we're so blind that we can't just figure this out by reading books. Like, it would just take too long. So I know I've definitely benefit from working with coaches, peer groups, trainers on that. But I guess, how can an organization go about finding somebody to help them out on that?
Yeah, I think you're onto something there, Wim. I think the number one thing that I would say is that the stuff that coaches are really helpful with, because they're business coaches, but I think a certain level of reading can help someone with kind of the more operational side of the business better than trying to learn the emotional side or the mental side. Like you said, it's not an intellectual exercise, right? And so the thing that I find really exciting is that softer side, like the mental health, the emotional intelligence stuff, that can be learned. I think some of us, like not you and I, but like other people that are listening to this in the business world, I think it's easy to think that, I've never spent a day in my life thinking or talking about the softer stuff. And it's a foreign language and I don't know how to tap into it. And so they don't even try because it's not in their wheelhouse. That's where a lot of people start. And so the encouragement, the exciting thing is that stuff can be learned. And so you got to start somewhere, even if you feel you're starting in the basement. And so I think there are so many people now that are starting to see the validity of emotional skills, mental health and, the stuff. The 51% of people are looking for a job. Like, that's an alarming stat, I think. But what do you do with that? And like you said at the beginning of this episode, Wim, it's the emotional skills that are going to tackle that problem. It's the softer skills. It's understanding how to relate to people in new and deeper ways. And there are a lot of coaches that are coming out of the woodwork that are focusing on those types of skills. The challenge is to find someone who is versed in those types of skills and the teaching and the training, but also has an idea about business and the people side and how to make those two things work together. I could brag about ourselves. I think we do a pretty good job of that. And, with some of the stuff that we're building, you and I, Wim, I think that we're able to offer that service to people as well, to business owners and business leaders. So call us, but it's also about fit, right? And I'm sure you can attest, you're not just going to, the coaches that you've called, you've built relationships with over years. And sometimes there's a fit, sometimes there's not, and so there has to be you got to gel with whoever's coaching you in order for it to be effective. And so sometimes it's trial and error, but it's just reaching out and going, and the self-aware part of, hey, you know what, I need help with this. And sometimes that's hard to get to the place where, you know what, I can't do this by myself. I'm not good at this and I need help. As soon as we can get to the place where we can admit that, then I think we've tackled a pretty big piece of that pie.
Yep. And then just to add to that is we can get tunnel vision when we're inside the business and somebody comes external, or it can be easier for me to coach somebody else, another entrepreneur, because I see exactly what's going on and I see their BS, their blind spots and the stories they see and excuses and the justifications. I can call them out on it, but they may not be seeing it themselves. And the same thing for me. It might be, it's easier for me to coach somebody else than somebody on my team.
The thing that makes I'm smiling because my two boys are 23 and 21 now, and I find that they are more apt to now listen to other people than they are to me. I say the same thing, but it's going to carry more weight now with someone else. And that's, I think, it's just part of life. But I think it's parallel to what you were saying is, so that's the benefit of like an external coach, because someone can come in with an objective view of their reality. And even though they don't understand everything that's going on in the business, they understand enough to be able to go, like you said, to call out their blind spot and go, hey, you know what? I don't think you're seeing this correctly. So there's definitely benefit in having someone external too.
Yeah, and I've seen in the past, I've worked with some wonderful coaches, but then after 12 months, 18 months, like we're kind of status quo, not really getting ahead because we're having the same conversations, and I maybe tapped out their knowledge. I was going to realize, it's not necessarily a problem. Sometimes it's them. I just tapped out how they can help, or it's on me. I'm not ready to progress. And it's like beating my head against the wall or going through the meetings through the motions is a waste of time and money. So maybe it's time to take a break and just implement myself or work with somebody else. Yeah. And that's okay. It's just some coaches are interested in it for a year, and that's fine. Just have a roadmap, work through it, and then see where you're at. It's not a 5-year commitment by any means. There's got to be value every month and traction.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with too many coaches that have lifetime agreements with people.
And because both are evolving, especially the client. They're actually getting results. The company's changing. There's new people coming in, and what were huge issues a year ago are long solved, and there's new things. And maybe that coaches can't help with that. Yeah. Good. There's a lot to do with bringing up the level of culture and changing it from a drudgery or people jumping ship or looking at that or having conversations with recruiters to saying, I love it here. And that's a constant effort every day, every week. And there's help out there. So I encourage people to explore those things, and it's going to pay off. Like the cost of replacing a person, there's different calculations. Some people say it's like 6 months or 12 months of salary to replace them because they're not performing probably maybe for the last 6 or 12 months. So their productivity is down. They leave, you're stuck, you're taking on their work. Other people can't do their stuff. There's a stress around that. You're trying to find a replacement. The replacement is probably going to cost more. They need training. They need more tools. And if they churn in 3, 6, 9 months, then you're repeating again. It's a huge cost. So it's worth it for us to invest into people and get ahead of these things. Yeah. And it needs a multifaceted approach. So there's people out there. We're happy to help through Griffin and what we do. Yeah. So, all right. That was fun, Steve. And we'll talk again.
Sounds good. Thanks, Wim.